A girl from my school named Cassidy Hernandez went into the Lion's Stair Theater at 4:30 p.m. It was a late December day. She was never seen again. Police determined she was a runaway. Nobody close to her agreed with that theory. She had frequent and volatile disagreements with her parents. Both of them were usually absent in her life due to their work schedules. Productions held in the arena ceased a decade before my date of birth. I researched the history of the venue. When the last movie screened, there was a Sam Peckinpah film titled The Getaway, released in 1972. Students assembled the last play performed. It was a stage version of the writer Larry McMurtry's The Last Picture Show. Her disappearance captivated the populace. Different theories circulated everywhere. Gossip infiltrated our campus and every grocery store for miles. I was susceptible to hearing the speculations. I needed to find out what happened to her. While I never knew her well, I always had a bit of a crush on Cassidy. The first thing I did was pay online for the police report. Redacted paragraphs with black bars of ink blanketing them were everywhere. It ended with a footnote stating how the case was ongoing. She was last seen wearing a magenta dress. Her father and mother denied any contention between them the evening she left. She even told them she would be back around 7 for dinner. Her parents were under the assumption she was going to visit her best friend Emily. Emily later denied ever having made contact with her that day, even via text. Nobody close to her was able to give authorities a definitive answer to why she was in that particular area. Everyone agreed on how she tended to take long walks to clear her head. The police found her purple backpack hooked on the top of a streetlight. An investigator concluded someone had thrown the bag over the edge of a balcony. The report stated she received roses and chocolates in class days prior. No one knew who sent them. I chose to go to the auditorium in the evening. The Lion's Stair Theater sat in the center of my town. I have renamed the place to prevent people from trying to explore the location. The building was horseshoe-shaped from the outside. A real estate developer attempted to convert it into an apartment complex. They abandoned it shortly after. This halting in the refurbishment was evident by its inconsistent color scheme. Caution tape fluttered in the wind. I was not going to risk bypassing it in broad daylight. I will wait until nightfall, I thought. I found a stairwell exit door propped open on the north end of the building. For a second, I wondered if construction contractors may have been still coming in and out. I did not see any work trucks in the vicinity, so I decided to try my luck. I walked through and secured the door behind me. I did not want to rouse suspicion should anyone walk the perimeter. I had seen security guards in places like this when I was younger and into urban exploring. I reached the main seating area and walked down the center aisle. To my surprise, some of the bulbs at the end of each step were still lit up and flickering. The inside of the theater was a metallic dark green. The hues were on everything from the upholstery to the cloth of the curtains and the wood of the stage. My foot brushed something. I wrote it off as debris until I looked down and saw it was the tattered piece of a magenta dress. I felt my throat close. I reasoned there was no way this could be hers. I looked closer and saw it was not cut with a pair of scissors, a razor, or a knife. The strength of a man's hand had done the damage. 6 more steps down near the foot of the front row was another identical piece of fabric. I walked towards it and came across another desiccated garment. It was a trail of garb, and it led up to the platform. I walked under the scaffolding and onto the stage. I moved behind the Viridian wall. The backstage area resembled a junkyard of the performing arts. Broken-down props were in alignment next to the statues. The stone figures once a part of Shakespearean tragedy stared at me. The sound of a passageway swinging open reverberated behind me. The beam of a flashlight became visible. I darted down into a chamber blanketed in darkness. The small staircase I took was on rollers, which almost caused me to topple over. I landed on my feet instead. I sprinted down a vestibule covered in old pictures of former directors and local stars. There was a means of access to a completely blackened compartment. I stepped inside, closed and locked the entranceway behind me. I was in a green room. There were dusty volumes and black and white pictures of young people. Their faces had drippings of blood near their eyes. There were Polaroids scattered on the ground. The letters L and R and various numbers were on the foreheads of the children. A metal safe sat in the corner. I approached it and crouched. Footsteps outside became more and more distant. I tried to regulate my breathing and adrenaline. Whoever had been following me disappeared from the immediate area based on the sound. I checked the knob of the safe on the off chance it was open. All I got in return was a handful of cobwebs. I looked at all the pictures and decided to try and crack the code. Improbable as my chances seemed, I looked at the numbers and letters in the photographs. I took note of the individuals from the youngest to the oldest. When I had used the numbers before me, I managed to open them. It sounds crazy that anyone would leave their code out in the open. I must admit I have worked for many business owners who made the same mistake. A spider the size of my hand crawled along my forearm as I reached into the vault. I smashed it against the wall. I saw a cardboard box on the inside, at the very bottom of the safe. I ripped the top apart to see what was inside. I saw a stack of leather-bound books. I picked one to flip through and discovered it was handwritten. The penmanship was exquisite. It was almost calligraphy, and I recognized it as a girl's. There was no name anywhere on it, a fickle attempt at anonymity. I knew I had to carry the book with me because whoever locked them up did so for a reason. I had to scour the contents to find out why. I started reading a few entries at the back of the volume. They were sketches of other people's lives. Very little of the text was in the first person. Summaries of individual biographies leaked off the page. Their accomplishments, failures, love interests, jobs, and plans made for the future. The personal hell they had survived captivated me. There were also mentions of the fashion of these men and women. No design referenced seemed familiar to me. The footsteps returned. The door to the green room collapsed. I picked up the box. A monolithic man wearing a hollow gray wolf mask ran in and dashed me. I stood and whipped out a punch while still holding the box. It was not the greatest moment of my fighting life, but I still connected with his jaw. He stumbled back a few steps and unleashed a howl as I brought the flat of my foot against his kneecap. His leg went in reverse enough for me to ruin his balance and send him hurtling to the floor. He did a push-up to stand again, but by then I was already racing. I ran through the threshold and out into that passageway again. It seemed to be a never-ending corridor with no exit. In the corner of my vision, I saw a grimy piano. Piles of curtains the same color as Cassidy's dress decorated the tops of the ivories. Small holes in the ceiling allowed a thin rivulet of sunlight to shine as a beacon. It was a bittersweet reminder of the faraway world above. In my sprint, I almost tripped over a few floorboards with rusty nails that stuck out. I wandered into another chamber. I shut the door behind me, looked around, and saw an assemblage of machines. The scent of iron oxide was strong. I was in a projection room. There were 2 cameras. 4 other connected electrical boxes pointed at the stage through a grungy porthole. I heard the same footsteps outside come closer, so I grabbed the only thing I could, a film canister. I looked at the door and prepared to swing it at the man should he approach me again. The door opened and closed. A person walked in, but this figure was different from the one chasing after me. Cassidy came in. She wore a tattered, dirt-covered dress. She had tangled hair. My instincts told me to hug her. I wanted to take some kind of small victory lap at having done something the cops were unable to. I refrained and did not wish to alienate or scare her. I tried to lock my eyes on hers. She walked over to the machine. She seemed disinterested in my presence, even ignorant of my being there with her. "Is he keeping you hostage?" She tilted her head to the side and stared at me with a quizzical expression. "Who are you?" "We both had AP English together 2 years in a row," I said with my palms facing her. "I'm down here of my own free will," she said as she flipped the latch and placed a mechanical apparatus in it. "Sorry I don't remember you. Trust me when I say I can't imagine being anywhere else. That's not right. You have to go back home. I need to stay here. This is where I belong." I see you found my journals. I hope you didn't read too many of them. They are very personal to me for obvious reasons. I'll take them off your hands now." I gave her the box. She placed it on the shelf behind her and went back to operating the equipment. "What do you do down here?" "I play films for the ghosts," she said with a smile. "They are the most appreciative audience. They love being exposed to stories of real flesh and blood people, of humans like how they once were. It gives a sense of nostalgia and vicariousness. Component malfunctions and fires do occur with this setup. The celluloid is nitrate, the kind they used long before you and I were born. Those instances are minimal, and I've got plenty of extinguishers. This job is very complicated, but it's important, even with the dangers of the arc lamps." I looked out the window at the countless verdurous rows of vacant seats. My blood pressure rose. No one is down here but you, me, and whatever psychopathic hillbilly I saw back there. I said, "Everyone's worried about you. They deserve to know you're alive. Take my hand and let me walk you out." "No," she said as she turned around and pointed to a corner. My eyes followed her direction, and I saw a ventilation duct. "I would leave that way if I were you," she continued. "The man you're referring to is Kobold. He is my protector. He will kill you if he finds you in here with me. Leaving is your best chance. Come with me," I said. The door came down with a thundering crash, and the same masked shadow barged in. He did not lay eyes on Cassidy at all, but instead made a direct path toward me. I scrambled towards the duct and managed to squeeze into it. I heard the massive man pound his fist against the walls. The reverberations beat on my eardrums. I kept a hurried pace down the narrow channel until I wound up on the street outside, where I dashed as far away as I could. I told both the police and my parents everything I knew. My father and mother claimed I should not tell Cassidy's family. They believed it might give them a false sense of hope regarding her disappearance. I interpreted this advice later on as how even my folks did not believe my part of the story. The response of law enforcement was a bit more serious, at least on the surface. They searched the building, or so they alleged. They did not find anything. I never saw Cassidy again, and neither did anyone else as far as I know. I always sit back late at night and think about what could have happened if I stayed there.